The subject of family is such an important one for all of us. And yet, when we look at family through this lens of human design, it really is quite a surprise what is at the root of what brings us our identification with family. Because the whole notion of family is fundamentally a construct that is controlled outside of the process of the people inside the family. When we look at a body graph, everything that you see is an imprint that's inside that person, and the aura of that person is simply an electromagnetic version of what you see in the body graph. But when we talk about family, there's nothing human about the family. The basis of what makes the family identification is of the aura, but it is a construct that's not within any human form. The family is actually a trans-auric form that is called, in human design anyway, penta. And that word penta is quite a logical name to give this form. Penta meaning of 5, because the basic building block of family is the penta aura, a trans-auric form that is created out of the auras of the members of the family. So this trans-auric form, or penta, is actually a virus. It's a trans-auric form that takes control of the individual auras of the members of that penta group. And I say penta group because fundamentally this auric form operates outside of the family as well, in any small group of people, up to 5 people that are within auric range of each other. Always imagine a bubble around you about 2 arms lengths out on average. That is the range of your aura. If your aura touches another person, then what is exchanged is the conditioning information of that other design, and thus we can create this connection chart, which is the result of the personal conditioning between 2 people. However, the moment that a third person comes inside that auric zone, all of the personal individual auras are pushed to the side, and a penta aura is created. This virus comes alive and suddenly starts working on its agenda relative to the people in that group. So this is a trans-auric form that really was created as a byproduct of the genetic imperative. And the genetic imperative is make more, otherwise your species is going to be extinct, and care for the young that are created so that they can go on and become procreative themselves. And it's this take care that the program really doesn't trust us humans to do. You won't find a penta construct for any other type of animal group. A chicken shows its young how to scratch and then go live your life. But this penta is a recognition that bringing up human young is an enormously complex and time-consuming process, not just the brain development taking a long time, but to take on the correct values. The education of the young is an extremely lengthy process, and unless that caring is completed adequately, well, we would just end up as a feral species. And that is not a very good basis for the development of intelligence and this experiment in self-reflection, which is what we humans are. So this imprinting program that we live in has engineered it through the aegis of this penta plug-in, for the want of a better word, this virus. It's engineered it so that we must do what it says. We must care within our family group in a very, very specific way to ensure the viability of the species in the succeeding generations. And the minimum age of a child that the program sees as viable independently is 7 years of age. And I know that's laughable in this complex world that we live in, but this is an ancient program. So fundamentally, this is what the Penta Aura is for. It's a mechanism to ensure the success of the underlying family. And in this video, I'm not giving you a full lesson on everything related to the Penta because we would be here for days. My plan is to provide training videos on every aspect of the family Penta construct and also the business Penta construct. But in this video, I'm just giving you a basic overview of how this Penta chart is derived, and from an overview perspective, how to look at this Penta and get maximum value in the minimum possible time. Now we have two family charts that are called Penta charts. The Penta Pro that you're looking at here and the more vanilla Penta. And if you look at that Penta chart here, you can see it's an incredibly simplified version of the Penta Pro. The reason we've done this is that if you go on any professional training in terms of business or Penta family type knowledge, it's this simplified chart that is used. And thus the few other places where you can purchase human design Penta calculation software, this is the format of the pentagraph that you're going to see. But this chart doesn't give you any sense of what this Penta truly is all about. And this is why we at Genetic Matrix have created this Penta Pro chart to really show you this transauric virus in action. And there are some fundamental differences in this chart. For example, if you look at the vanilla Penta chart that's used in teaching, you will see down below there are no gate numbers on it, but the 5, the home, is the lowest here, and then that moves to the 15, the flow. On the other side, the world is the 29th gate, and that moves up to the 46. Well, that's showing you this flow in terms of a body graph. The 5 does move to the 15, the 15 does move down to the 5. The 29 does move to the 46 and so on. But that is not how this family Penta Aura actually operates. Fundamentally, the Penta is a unidirectional auric entity. The energy only moves in one way. Within the quantum of our human body graph, the energy can move every which way it wants to. The 5 to the 15 to the 5. If you don't have a 15 and you have the preservation channel out the left side of the sacral, well, the 5, utilizing that definition, can use that flow. It's a quantum. The Penta is not. The Penta is one-way traffic. And if we go back to the Penta Pro now, you'll see it's a strange kind of shape. And the reason for that is to really mimic for you what this auric form looks like. It is invisible, you can't touch it, you can't taste it, you can't smell it. But this is really what it looks like if you could see it. And it's an automatic construct. The moment 3, 4 or 5 people come within auric range of each other, the Penta Aura is immediately created. And it does that by hooking on to all of the auras of the members of that group, pushing their personal auras to one side, taking out of those auras the energy it needs to fund its own viral process, and it maintains this aura just like if you could imagine a whirlwind or a vortex. It's an energy that is self-fulfilling, that is ever-present as long as the properties for that Penta are always there, which means the people in the group. And it's also a very amorphous form. If one person moves out of the aura range, well, the Penta will reconfigure itself to take advantage of what's left. So this is an incredible mechanism, this Penta. And now if you look down below where the 5 and the 29 is on that simple penta view that's used in teaching, well, you can see it's completely the other way around. The 15 is at the bottom, the 46 is at the bottom, not the 5 and the 29. So this really illustrates for you that this is not something that's inside of us. It's something that is utilizing the energy of our auras to fulfill its own role, which is to ensure the genetic viability of the family or the success of any business group. And if I show you a picture of a vortex, well, you can see now why this is configured like this. The fundamentals of any vortex is that you have a broad base to it that is the source of the power ultimately. That then gets funneled up through the middle where it spreads out and then gets drawn back down to the base. And this is why you get this ever-present movement when the components of that vortex are there. A whirling motion of upwards energy that's pulled down at the sides to feed the upwards push again. And I've overlaid here the pentic zones. I'm not calling them centers anymore because there are no centers in a transauric form. It's taking gates from centers, but you can't call these energy centers anymore. So the 15 and the 46, well, these would be in the self center in the body graph, which is why I've colored them yellow so that you can recognize them more easily. And of course the red are sacral gates. This is the power of the vortex. So the 15 is hooking the auras in. The 46 is harmonizing those auras once they're in the flow. So that gives the stability at the bottom of this vortex. And then it goes into the energy itself, the sacral, where it pulls that energy, funnels it up through the 14. And then we go back into the direction zone again, the second gate in the self center, the 1, the 13, the 7 also self center gates, and then above that is the throat center, the lower side of the throat center. So this is the construct of what a penta aura actually looks like. So if we go back to the Penta Pro chart now, you can see why it's broad at the bottom, broad at the top, with this funneling going on through the middle, because that is the shape of this transauric vortex that is now controlling the auras of the members of the group. So being conditioned within a pentic aura means that ultimately we're all puppets on strings. And it just so happens that all of the people in this group have pretty powerful designs in and of themselves in their own right. But you could have a very powerful design. I'm an emotional manifester, a lot of power in terms of another transauric form that's called the OC16 or WA. But in terms of the penta, I am an absolute irrelevance. I don't bring sacral energy. I don't bring any pentasacral gates, even in an undefined sacral center. I don't bring much in the way of identity. I've just got a hanging first gate in my undefined self center. And yes, as a manifester, I have a defined throat, but the only penta gate that's of any value that in my own design that is in the throat is the 31. So I've got one defined penta gate, and thus the penta itself would see me as a feeble member of that penta. It really is looking for channels. It gives preference to channels. It will also utilize gates, but it loves channels. So if you've got strong channel definition between the sacral, the self and the throat, well, you would be a penta darling, so to speak. So to quickly give you an overview of how this chart is structured, this is a family of 4. The 4 designs, or 3 or 5 if your group is made up of that human dynamic. They're always arranged around the outside of the chart here, and the penta is ageist. It prefers age to youth, so the penta always prioritizes based upon the age of that penta member. How it knows the age, I do not know, but it does. So we have the father top left, the mother below, and then the 2 children in the age order. And you can clearly see their individual designs in these small body graphs. And then you have a coloured dot next to each person. That coloured dot is referring to the coloured boxes on the pentagraph itself. So every box that is surrounded in blue is the father and the father's pentic activations. Remember, it's not all of the activations in your design. It's only the 6 channels between the sacral, the self and the throat. And thus every other colour on this pentagraph is related to one of the people that are in the group. So it's through hooking these 4 auras together, stripping out the activations that the penta needs, that this penta will then become the puppet master for this family and the creation of the identification with family by the members of that family. And in the next video, we're going to go further and look at each one of these boxes, and I'll give you a quick sound bite of what everything means in terms of a basic overview.